Hey there YouTube lovers, my name is BB8 and today I am going to review Moana 2. It's been a while since I've done a BB8 reviews film, since I mainly review movies on my second channel if my opinion tends to be the opposite from the public opinion, like I did for Wish earlier in the year. But before we get into my thoughts on the film itself, I thought I'd want to provide a bit of background on the film. I bet a lot of people didn't know this, since only people who pay attention to Disney Investor Days or D23 would know this, but Moana 2 was originally supposed to be a long-form TV show on Disney Plus, titled Moana. Given that I was a big fan of the first Moana film, I was actually interested to see how Moana's story would continue, even if it wasn't on the big screen, like we've seen with TV shows like Tangled and Big Hero 6. But then, in February of 2024, the announcement of Moana 2 dropped, with confirmation that the Moana Disney Plus show was, in fact, reworked into a movie. And I would be over-exaggerated if I said I was excited for this film. But I definitely was interested in watching it, and after all, the first Moana film is my favourite modern Disney musical. But my biggest worry going into this film is that the animation quality would be awful. Only because Disney have reworked a Disney Plus series into a movie before with the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild, which looked awful visually, but surprisingly with Moana 2, the animation didn't look rushed. It looked to be on par with the first movie, which did get rid of one worry for me. But I did have other worries going into this. But we will talk about it as soon as we dig deeper into the video. First of all, Disney doesn't typically have a good track record with sequels. If you ignored Pixar for 1 second, I'm talking about Walt Disney Animation Studios here, since they did roll out 2 sequels in 2018 and 2019 with Ralph Breaks the Internet and Frozen 2, which both were alright, but were inferior to their original parts. Because like, the only reason I find Ralph Breaks the Internet and Frozen 2 inferior to their original films is because the stories were a bit messy. The protagonists kind of go off character a bit, kind of like how we've seen Ralph go off character in Ralph Breaks the Internet, and the songs being less memorable in the context of Frozen 2. But why did I want to review Moana 2 on my second channel? Well, the reason I wanted to review this film on my channel is because I was a big fan of the first film, and I was curious for people to hear my opinion on the movie, only because reviews were mixed from critics. But you're not here for their opinion. You're here for my opinion. And what did I think about it? And will the sequel be as shiny as the original? Or can we agree that this is a sequel that doesn't know how far it will go? You're about to find out. So, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? Starting off with the story. The story this time revolves around Moana going on a voyage after she has a vision from her ancestor. which tells her to go to the island of Motu Fetu with her crew, Loto, who is a boat craftswoman, Moni, who's a Maui fanboy, and Kayleigh, who is a farmer. But I will talk more about them in the characters section, but back to the story. While the plot does introduce some ideas that are fresh, such as Moana's arc with her sister and the giant clam, but for people who've seen the first movie, you will notice that some elements within the story have been repeated in the sequel, such as the Kakamora, who are not evil this time, but are trying to seek help from Moana and her crew to get back to their home island that is trapped within a monster storm. And of course, some of the jokes from the first movie were reused as well, such as the boat snack joke and the Pua being offended by pork joke. However, where Moana 2 makes up for its reused plot and jokes is the theme and message of community. And since we have had another Disney movie have the theme of community with Raya and the Last Dragon in 2021, Moana 2 doesn't do a bad job at integrating the theme of community. Since the film does revolve around Moana going on a journey to connect the people from various islands together. And that said, I did feel like the movie had issues with its pacing. And while I don't mind the movie taking a break from action and musical numbers to focus on the plot, I just feel like the pacing was a bit awkward, which isn't surprising given that this was reworked from a Disney Plus show. But still, even if the story retreads the first Moana film and has issues with its pacing, Moana 2 definitely doesn't provide a bad message of community and importance of connecting with others. Moving on from the story, let's talk about the animation. It is expected from a Disney movie for the animation quality to be great. But my biggest fear going into this film is that the animation quality would look cheap. The only reason I would even say that is because Moana 2 was originally supposed to be a Disney Plus show and not a theatrical movie. So I was a little skeptical to see if the animation quality would look awful like the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild, for example, because that was actually Disney's first attempt at reworking a Disney Plus show into a movie, and I did not enjoy it. But back to Moana. The animation quality looks surprisingly great for a Disney Plus show reworked into a movie. The visuals still look great. Just like the first movie, the water effects are stunning, and I really loved how well the action scenes, such as the third act, are choreographed. And one thing I love to bring up about the animation as well is the song sequences, which, like the first film, I love how colourful the surroundings of the characters whenever a song starts to play, such as Get Lost, sung by Matongi, and Can I Get a Chihu, sung by Maui. The animation in Moana 2 was a pleasant surprise for a reworked Disney Plus project, and I could easily say for now that it was worth the theatrical upgrade mainly for this reason. Maybe not for any other aspect of the film, but the animation makes it worth watching in a theatre. Now moving on to the characters, Moana and Maui are the reasons I came to watch Moana 2. Another big concern I had with the characters, with it being reworked from a Disney Plus show, is the change in voice actors. Similar to how the Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild recast everyone apart from Simon Pegg as Buck Wild, thankfully that wasn't the case with Moana 2. Since they did get Aulio Carvalho back as Moana and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Maui. And while Maui was barely with Moana until the back half of the movie, Maui still finds a way to be the funniest character in Moana. And while still keeping a balance between Maui being a comedic and serious character at the same time. The Kakamora from the first movie return but don't play as an antagonistic of a role as they did in the first movie, as their goal is to get back home to their home island, which is trapped inside the monster storm, as they do ask Moana and her wayfinding crew to help them defeat the monster storm so they can reclaim their home island. The new characters in the movie, such as Moana's little sister Samea, who actually does have a great sister-sister dynamic with each other, with little Samea even showing how much she cares about her sister Moana by not wanting her to go on her voyage in case she doesn't come back. But what about Moana's crew? Well, even though their names are difficult to remember without Googling them, I do appreciate the Hawaiian naming scheme for these characters. Moana's crew does consist of Moni, Loto, and Kele, who all act as villagers in Motunui with their own roles. But if I'm being honest about these characters, her crew would actually work better as background characters than being in the forefront. And while Matongi did seem like a villain from the trailers, is probably my favourite of the new characters in the film. And even though her character does feel incomplete, because she wasn't in the movie for as long as I hoped she would be, there is a post-credit scene with her being set up for a potential Moana 3, which does feature Tamatoa, still voiced by Jermaine Clement, like in the first film. And the character variety this time around was not the best, but given that this was a sequel to Moana, I wasn't expecting the side characters to be that memorable. But I didn't come here for them. I came here for Maui and Moana. And now, before we conclude the review, we have the songs. One of the biggest strengths of the first Moana film was the incredible soundtrack written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. But in Moana 2, he doesn't return to write the songs. Instead, the songs are written by Abigail Barlow and Emily Bear, who do form the musical duo Bear and Barlow. I didn't think they did a bad job at writing and composing the music for Moana 2, but like Frozen 2, I didn't find the songs to be as memorable as the first Moana film, but I did find them to be catchy. And the two songs that did stand out to me when I watched Moana 2 were Get Lost, sung by Matongi, and Can I Get a Chihu, sung by Maui. Every other song in the film for me was at least okay, but I just think lacked the spark that made Moana 1 an auditorial great. And now, before we conclude the review, I thought I'm gonna give you my overall rating on the film. The story, I'm giving a 7 out of 10. While I do think the sequel does explore the themes of and messages of community with a few fresh ideas in the mix, I feel like the film struggles with its pacing and relies on retreading plot elements and jokes from the first film. And despite that, I love the message and community that the movie provides. The animation, I'm going to give a 10 out of 10. The animation in Moana 2 is fantastic, maintaining the high quality visuals of the original Moana film, especially exceeding my expectations for a reworked Disney Plus project, and the action scenes as well as the musical sequences add to how well the animation quality in the film is executed. For the characters, I'm going to give a 6 out of 10. Moana and Maui are still engaging leads to watch, but the supporting characters, particularly in Moana's wayfinding crew, feel a bit underdeveloped, and while Matangi has potential, her limited screen time weakens her impact as a new character. And for the songs, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. While the songs were decent, it lacks the unforgettable spark that Lin-Manuel Miranda provided to the first Moana film. And standouts like Get Lost and Can I Get a Chee-Hoo mainly save the experience for me, even though it doesn't match the original film's auditorial spark. So, in conclusion, my final score for Moana 2 is 7.5 out of 10. Moana 2 is an enjoyable sequel, but doesn't quite match the heights of the first movie, but offers a fair amount. Maybe not as expansive, but a fair amount of heart, great animation quality, and musical numbers that still make Moana 2 worth watching. Even though this is an opinion that many won't agree on, but Moana 2 is a decent follow-up to my favourite modern Disney musical, and while capturing some elements of the charm of the original, it still struggles with a few flaws which are common in sequels. The stunning animation and the message of community do carry the movie for me, and even with the pacing issues occurring throughout the film, the story does revisit areas we've already visited in the first movie, and fans of the first movie, like me, still find enjoyment watching Maui and Moana on screen. But I do feel like the supporting characters and the soundtrack do lack the impact of the first movie. And while not a masterpiece, I definitely think it's better than Strange World and Wish. Not as good as Encanto or Raya and the Last Dragon, but is probably halfway out of the ones I rank from the 2020s. And here's a bonus. It's better than Ralph Breaks the Internet and Frozen 2. Considering the Disney animated canon doesn't have that many sequels in it, Moana 2 probably has to be the best sequel we've had from the Disney canon so far. Not their best movie from the Disney canon, but their best sequel. So guys, what did you think of the first BB8 Reviews film in a while? And I want to hear from you. What movies do you want to see me review in BB8 Reviews film in the future? Because I do have 4 on the table. All of them are Disney films, which apparently, my opinion on these films are mainly the opposite from the public opinion. Those are Raya and the Last Dragon, Lightyear, Elemental, and Turning Red. These 4 films, my opinion differs from the public opinion. But the only negative opinion I have on these 4 films is Turning Red. So if anyone wants to see these 4 films get a review in the future, I will put a poll in the community tab on BB8 powered by BB8 House. So, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and turn your notification bell on so you don't miss another review like this one in the future. And I will see you all in a future edition of BB8 Reviews Film. BB8 out.